Are you guys all right with getting started?
Yes.
How's the volume?
Good.
Is it all right? How's the temperature? Is it good? Anybody need anything? Anybody need any of the handouts? Okay. Very good, very good. So let's have a conversation about authenticity. And some of the best coach training I ever received was, anybody know the folks at Conversant, Mickey Connolly, Richard Reinashek? Really worth checking out. I went to a coaching conference once. You know when you go to the conferences, you're like, I hope I got in on the right session. Oh, I shouldn't say that because you guys are like, oh, these are the right session. So one of the things that I learned from them is the idea that conversation, like a coaching conversation, means turning together toward. You know, like let's all just turn together toward this topic of authenticity, and let's have it be a conversation, even though I'll do most of the talking, which is not anything new or different. I was the kid that always got kicked out in the hallway. So we're just going to jump right in with some music. Okay. So one of the things about authenticity, it's hard for me to talk about myself. So I just want to kind of skip through this part. You can just kind of see a little bit about me and the things that I do. I do want to talk about this one thing, this Youth Philanthropy Initiative is a program I do with high school students. It's a 3-year program where the students have a budget of $30,000, and they get out of school one day a month, a cohort of 25 of them, and they work together over 3 years to identify an issue facing teens, and then create an intervention to address it, and implement that intervention in a way that once they graduate the program in high school, that it's now a social franchise that other communities can pick up if they want to address that problem. And the reason I bring it up is they are huge StrengthsFinder fans. Anybody here work with youth? And okay, so you know the challenges of youth is about who am I, how do I fit in, and then when you see them have a sense of self and a confidence in themselves, it makes it extremely satisfying. What this is, they're in the early stages of their development, and so authenticity early on becomes a huge asset because the rest of us later are struggling with whatever lack of authentic development we didn't get. And so this program is really cool. It's only in Tulsa right now, but we are looking to pilot it in other communities. If that interests you at all, would love to talk to you about it. Anyway, that's just the rest of the stuff. So yeah, this will get to some interesting stuff about me. These are my top 5 themes. And so I'm going to present in the only way somebody with these themes could present. You know, so ideas, and you heard Paul Allen talk about ideation and last minute rewriting, you know, some comments that he was going to make. And I am rewriting this, like when the folks at Gallup said, oh, we want your presentation by like 7 years ago or whatever, they thought they were being proactive. It was only a week ago. But I was like, no, I can't give you that. So when I came in today, I had them updated. So, you know, this is how I'm going to present, and I hope it's not frustrating for any of you. If it is, just imagine how it is for me. I have 40 minutes, and I have a lot to talk about, so let's get going. All right, so I want to share an experience. I'm a little embarrassed to do this. It's a little self-disclosing. You'll see why in a minute. Just remember you're on my side. Okay. So I went through a 9-month coaching program that was a little different than the typical kind of coach training programs. And in this program, one of the things we did is we worked in small groups over the course of this time. And so we would get together, and one of the activities we had to do was have somebody help you identify your authentic self. So when you're in this small group, everyone else in your group will come up with a statement for your authentic self. And you kind of don't have any say in it. You just have to sit there and listen. But they also are coming up with a statement about your inauthentic self. What shows up when you feel social threat? the side of you that comes out. And they call that a shtick. That was the word that they used for this. It's your shtick. You kind of go into this routine when you just don't feel at home and comfortable and authentic. And so this other side of you comes out. So I'm going to show you both sides. And what's going to be really interesting is these statements were derived before I ever took the StrengthsFinder, before I did my themes. And what you'll see is how these themes could perfectly contribute to one statement and the other statement. It just depends. So without further ado, let me embarrass myself. This is pretentious Adam, or the shtick, when I'm experiencing social threat. I am a numb, self-absorbed, faux philosopher, desperately seeking your love and affection, while humorously destroying any potential for relationship. I'm single. And the good news is, like, I have a list of everybody who was in my session, and this is actually one of the milder ones. I got off kind of lucky. Yeah. But this is true. This is true. I don't like that. And could you imagine what it's like sitting there listening to the people like wordsmith the statement? I'm like, no, that's not, who are you talking about? That ain't me. My ego was screaming. But it didn't do any good. They still were doing this. All right, let's go to the other one. So what is my authentic self then? And I kind of like this one a little better. It says that when I'm being authentic, I create inspired access to uncommon wisdom through design integrity and a spirit of playful, awestruck wonder. I know. So I was worried about which one was going to show up today. Because that's how it happens. Okay, this is me, but it's true for you. The words would be different. But, which side of you is going to show up? And which side is better to live from? Which side do you produce the best results? Yeah, so part of the journey of authenticity is coming to terms with this stuff. All right, so I'm going to zoom through some stuff now just because I want to roll out some content and get to some of the big pieces. But I think there's a floorboard we need to set. All right, here's my purpose for today. I have a purpose for this session. And my purpose is to provide you with a framework that might help evoke your client's authenticity, your own authenticity. And I will say that if you can place your bets on any way to produce value for your clients, my personal bet would be on authenticity. Anytime I can help a client come closer to authenticity, I know I'm doing good work. Because sometimes, you're always kind of worried, am I producing value? That's what we want, that's what we're trying to do, but how do we know? And so for me, I think the authenticity work is really important. And so when you have a purpose that doesn't guarantee the outcomes, so you have to talk about outcomes too. And so outcomes are that I want to establish authenticity as primary to human functioning. I don't think I necessarily need to do that with this audience, but I'll say a few things about it. I want to demonstrate that the Clifton StrengthsFinder is the most powerful tool, at least that I've experienced, for helping people become more authentic or evolving their authenticity. And I want to provide a way for you all to help facilitate that. That's my real commitment here, is that I want to be providing something of value for you, and I hope I succeed. So I have a few ideas to put out there, and I say this, I do an idea fashion show. I'm going to walk some ideas down the runway, and you are free. Yes, you may not like them, and that's okay. You are free to accept, reject, or adapt anything I say. Any of those options are fine with me. Just don't yell at me or say mean things to me. So question, just a show of hands, who here has found that StrengthsFinder has helped them in their, okay? That's pretty good. Arthur Schopenhauer is this philosopher, considered one of the best philosophers in the last couple hundred years. But here's my favorite StrengthsFinder quote. The only thing that stands in our power to achieve is to make the most advantageous use possible of the personal qualities we possess. Let's just say strengths. and accordingly to follow such pursuits only as will call those strengths into play. To strive after the kind of perfection which they admit or which they offer or provide, and to avoid every other. Consequently, to choose the position, occupation, and manner of life which will be most suitable for their development, though the development of those qualities that are your greatest qualities. I love that because it's perfectly consistent with the message that Donald Clifton wanted to bring to the world. And language is a little archaic, but I think it's really true. So how do we know what those personal qualities are that we possess? And here I'm going to start to introduce you to what I call the 4 rooms of authenticity. And so self-knowledge is how we know. How do we choose the position, occupation, and manner of life that is most suitable to our individual nature? Self-acceptance, embracing those qualities. Sorry about the feedback there. How do we strive after the kind of perfection which they admit? Self-development. And how do we make the most advantageous use of them? Self-assertion. And I'm really excited to talk about that. It's at the end of my presentation, so I want to hurry up and get to it because I kind of wanted to start my presentation with this idea of self-assertion. The idea of shaping the environment around you to fit your authentic self. So I think StrengthsFinder primarily is a tool for authenticity. I know it's for engagement and team building and all of that stuff, but to me it is at its heart about authenticity. And the test for authenticity is, do you feel strong or do you feel weak? When you feel weak, your authenticity is under threat. When you feel strong, you feel passionate. You know, right before this, I jotted down a little note, and it was just an idea that authenticity is always a success. When you're being authentic, even if you don't get the results you want, but often you will, or you'll have a better chance of getting the results you want when you're authentic. But even if you don't, being authentic in itself is success. And you can take comfort in that and strive for that. So here's some definitions. I'm going to get into a little technical stuff because most people define authenticity, like if you read it, it'll say being who you are. I don't know about you, but I don't find that particularly helpful. I like it, I don't disagree with it, but it's a little circular. What is authenticity? Being who you are. What is being who you are? Well, it's being authentic. And I want to kind of get outside of that loop and kind of delve deeper into it. And that's what we're going to do, my goal. Authenticity is widely viewed, let me show the definition. Authenticity, knowing one's thoughts, feelings, and acting in accordance with them. And of course we know the themes, our top themes are patterns of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So how do we live in accordance with them? Well, this is not a controversial statement, even though we might not hear it very often, and it might sound a little technical, but the absence of authenticity is what contributes to pathology, psychopathology in an individual. And I don't just mean going off the extreme ends. I mean, it's just the stress we feel, the conflict we feel, the existential angst we experience. But it's also about the pathology of organization. If you've worked with organizations, and some of them are just weird organizations that just, the people there aren't able to be authentic. And even societies could be inauthentic and pathological. Okay, I'm kind of looking forward to this. All right, so it's central to well-being, and here are the 5 areas of well-being. And so a little statistic on that is 7% of the people surveyed said they experienced, they were thriving in all 5 areas. And what's so cool about this is I just walked out of a room where I was listening to one of the people I'm quoting in this. You know, only at a Gallup conference can that happen. It was pretty cool. That was not planned. All right. So this here was one of the best ways to illustrate authenticity. This really helped me kind of delve more deeply into this topic. Authenticity has these 3 elements to it. Direct experience. All right, just you are experiencing every moment physiological states, emotional states, cognitions. You have that stream of thought in your mind that if someone, you know, your sweetheart or somebody says, hey, what are you thinking? You know those moments? And you're like, oh gosh, this is a problem. 1, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? And then 2, it's like, oh gosh, how would I explain it? How would I put into words that kind of stream of thoughts? And then finally it's like, oh my gosh, I could never say that. I could never tell the person what I was just thinking of that. Okay, maybe that's me. Maybe that's not you, but that's our direct experience. We're directly experiencing it. And then the next piece is, how much of that direct experience are we aware of? Any thoughts on that? Pretty high, pretty low? I think pretty low. I think there's like the part of the iceberg above, that our floodlights of consciousness are aware of, and then there's all the stuff that happens below. And for those that practice mindfulness and pursue that, you start to say, oh wow, or even just learning about your themes. When I was preparing this presentation, all of my themes, the ones I showed you earlier, were just going manic. And I could just see them happening, like, oh wait, and I'll intellectualize and make my thoughts sometimes a little too complicated, which may happen here. Or ideation, I'll make some connections that excite me, but then, they may not be obvious to other people. Individualization was in pain, because you're developing your presentation. Who has individualization here? Yeah, and it's not until I actually see you and talk to you and maybe even hear some questions that it comes to life for me, So that knowing our themes helps us even become more aware of that conscious state. So we're moving further away from ourselves. We have our direct experience, our full-on experience, and then we have a fraction of that, which is our conscious awareness, and then finally we have the expression, which is living out of that conscious awareness of what we want and who we are. And so then, how often do we do that? How often do we have those sellout moments on ourselves where we have an impulse to do, who am I to do that? I couldn't do that. And so how do we live authentically? And so I love this model, and it raises a couple of questions or thoughts here. Some relationships among these areas. So the more there's a gap between these first two, you're self-alienated. You're alienated from yourself. How many of your clients are alienated from themselves in some ways? And how could you help them be more self-aware? And then between these two over here, you can betray yourself, or you can live a self-concordant life, a life where you are living the way you were meant to live, or you're capable of living. So this, people are struggling with this increased sense of meaning in their lives, and as we're freed up more and more from our base needs, then we're not worried about what to eat or what to wear. We're more like, who am I? What am I doing? How am I spending my life? We become aware of our mortality. The absence of authenticity, as I said, is the source for all psychopathology, and I want to talk about this a little bit. And I'm not talking about mental illness even. I kind of think that there's sort of like that perfect, healthy range of balance. And then there's a little bit of kind of getting off that beam a little bit, and maybe some people are one standard deviation away from that perfect balance. Some are 2, and some are 3. So when we're coaching, we're dealing with people mostly within this kind of range. So here are the 4 Ds of psychopathology I came across. I found this very helpful. And the idea is that they could range anywhere from mild to severe. And so the first one is deviance, and that's when the society around you views something as unacceptable. It doesn't mean it's wrong, it just means that you're out of step with your environment. And so there's consequences for deviance, and one of those is distress. And distress can just be the normal internal trouble, or the degree of internal trouble one experiences from their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Maybe they stress you out. I can think of lots of examples of thoughts people have that trouble them, or feelings that really incapacitate them, which kind of leads to the next one of dysfunction. And this is your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that you have are diminishing your performance in everyday life. And then the last one is danger, where your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are harmful to other people. And what I think is that coaching is mostly about the middle two, distress and dysfunction. And that's what we're trying to help our clients with. That's what they're coming to us with often. So this is not, I kind of see this delineation here, although I don't want it to be so rigid. I'm not like, I want you to be a little looser about this categorization of coaching to therapy to psychiatry. But I thought I added that on, and I thought, yeah, that really helps me understand who my clients are and the roles that I can effectively play and which roles I'm not equipped to play. So, does somebody want me to put that back real quick? Okay. So, authenticity. Okay, I need to get to this. So I'm talking about the gap. Here's the gap I'm talking about. Authentic self in your environment. And there's two ways to reduce that gap. And what happens is the wider the gap, the more, I call it contrast, the more contrast you have, you're experiencing. And I'm going to talk about this in a minute. This is going to set up something pretty cool. And then the more they're aligned, then you have alignment. So we're going to talk about that. All right, makes sense? Okay. So understanding where your client is, how wide is that gap? And how to narrow it. All right. So this is what I call the strength meter. And this was, all right, let me just explain the model. I don't want to give you the backstory. The idea here is that as you go through the day, all of us have this meter. All of us have this because, and it's bouncing around all the time. You know, it's usually kind of in the middle range, and then sometimes it'll swing one way or the other. And so these, between 0 and 25, you're suffering. Think about an experience you have. You're like, I hate doing this. I hate being around these type of people. You feel weak. You feel inauthentic. You feel drained. You're uncommitted. You can't wait to stop. And then on the other side is thriving, where you feel strong. You feel authentic. You're energized and committed. So contrast is on the left side of the meter, and alignment is on the right side of the meter. This is how you know. Our emotions are a powerful, powerful source of information if we know how to use them right. They don't necessarily give you information about the outside world around us, but they give you, there's no other information you can get about what's going on inside of us better than our emotional states. And I know that people often dismiss emotions, and I don't think I'm among those people today, but it really concerns me that we dismiss that because it's such powerful. Nobody can tell you how you feel about something, but what you feel tells you an awful lot about alignment and contrast in your life. And so let's take this person over here with their little box that they have as they go throughout the day collecting either contrast or alignment. Okay? And what happens is we experience negative emotions from contrast and positive emotions from alignment. And so what happens is when we experience positive emotions, we're more engaged. When we're more engaged, our velocity is higher. We're more productive. Our vibration raises. What we radiate is more positive. We get more done. We have better ideas. We're better at influencing. We build stronger relationships. And then the result of velocity is rapport. And then positive rapport feeds back into the positive emotions, and it's a self-perpetuating loop. But the same is true for the contrast. It could be a self-perpetuating loop. Negative emotions, lower engagement, lower velocity, and now your relationships are suffering, and that just feeds the whole cycle. So I would love to talk about this. I'm not going to have time, so I'm just going to zoom through it real quick. But if we take this person and say, how do they have more positive emotions? This is from Martin Seligman's book, and he only spends like a page and a half on it. And I don't think he realized what like amazing concept this was. He called it the 3 pillars of happiness. But what gives me positive emotions is the experience I have right before it. Like whenever you experience a positive emotion, just go, wait a minute, what experience did I have right before it? That'll tell you something. So positive experiences lead to positive emotions. What are the positive emotions? Barbara Fredrickson, a positive psychology researcher, identified these as the 10 positive emotions. And just to keep it balanced, but not as scientifically derived, here are 10 negative emotions. Okay, so we want the positive ones. How do we get them? Positive experiences. Well, what's a positive experience? It's when the activities you're engaged with align with your positive personal traits, like your values, your goals, and your strengths. The more you play to your strengths, the more likely you're going to say it's a positive experience. Well, how do we align our activities with our positive personal traits? Well, the secret lies in this. Most of the activities you engage in happen within the context of an institution: school, work, home, family, neighborhood, your country. And so positive institutions are what allow for you to participate in activities that align with your values. So, do we belong to positive institutions? Do we need to shape our institutions? So it kind of takes the secret out of how do I have more green as opposed to red at the end of the day. Pretty cool. All right, so now here's what I want to get to, the 4 rooms. Some things about this. This is universal. Every client, every issue is located somewhere within the 4 walls. This is a universal struggle, is our authenticity. And it's a natural, continuous loop, and I think it builds on itself. I'm doing it in the wrong direction. Now I'm now doing it in the right direction. So self-knowledge is where it begins, self-acceptance, self-development, self-assertion. And it's kind of like a continuous upward winding staircase, because once you assert yourself, you've gathered new information that you can take into account. But you're evolved since then. And so it's an upward winding staircase. And I thought of rooms because each room in your home has a different purpose. You go to that room for a purpose, but you don't stay there permanently. It's very fluid, but yet they're all connected into your home. Do you know that? Anybody here know the etymology of the word coaching? Okay, you want to share real quick, or?
My understanding is that it actually came from someone who was on sabbatical from his regular job. He was coaching tennis pros, and understood that coaching for athletes translates to coaching for people. You look at your performance, you decide what the gap is, and then you go and make the necessary changes. So
somebody made this understanding of coaching tennis players and then brought it into coaching individuals.
I understood it as think about a coach, like a coach.
Or like a carriage.
A carriage.
Yeah, so this is what my research found too, is that there was a town in Hungary in the 1500s that was known for its craftsmanship of carriages. And the name of this town was Kocsy, K-O-C-S-I. And so really it's a carriage. And then it made its way into, in England, in tutoring, that the role of a tutor was to convey their students through exams toward greater insight and enlightenment. And then it made its way into sports in rowing, and then and then that's how it made its way to sports. So even if it's not true, I think that's a pretty cool story. So as a coach, your job is to transport people, maybe help them through this journey through the 4 rooms. Okay. So how do you use this? How do I use this? Well, you could use it in a single session. In one coaching session, you could really take the client through the different phases. Or maybe it's over the course of an engagement. Maybe you spend one session in one room and then the next room. But one thing that I think is really important is you don't need to talk about the rooms. I don't really. For me, it's a diagnostic. The word diagnose means to know through. So it doesn't have to be a diagnostic, I think, it needs to mean something really super scientific and precise, but it's a means of knowing something. And so it's helping me know where the client is having challenges. Do they have a blind spot and they don't see something? Is there something about themselves that they just don't want to accept? Have they not undertaken the development to move them closer to their potential selves? And are they not asserting themselves? Are they just frustrated because they're not making the things happen for themselves? I see this a lot. It's called chronicity. They have this chronic issue, and they think that by hiring a coach that they're off the hook now. And so, but they don't have the ownership to make it happen. Anybody experience that? Okay. Well, I have. So I gave you handouts because I knew this was going to happen. We were going to run short on time. So I have thoughts in those handouts that you can now have with you. Yes, because 40 minutes just isn't enough time. But let's see what we can do. Self-knowledge, it asks questions like, what is true about me? What is not true about me? A lot of what you think you believe may not be authentically you. I say that, and then I want to move on. I want to leave that hanging, Like there's things that I thought I truly believed, or that, and then I just never questioned it is all. How does my environment align with me or contrast with me? StrengthsFinder connection here is that it gives language to those qualities. When I know someone's top 5, it gives me like a little map of who they are. Like I can see somebody, I can see their face, and that's not a good way to assess somebody. But StrengthsFinder, knowing their themes, is like showing me their internal face, you know? And it's like, it tells me so much about them. I had a call with a potential client yesterday, and we talked, and he says, number one thing is relator. And I said, I just knew, and I said this, I said, oh, I'm going to be completely transparent with you. You know, I'm not going to make you play guessing games, you know, because he did ask, how much? And I said, here's how much I charge, here's my thinking on it, here's why it's worth it, and here's ways that if you want to save money, we could, I mean, I was just totally transparent, because I know that part of his internal face appreciates that. I try to do that anyway, but when I know somebody is relator, I'm extra transparent. You know, just being conversant in the themes is really helpful this way. So each theme has an anatomy. Okay, this is another piece of content that I've developed that I'd love to do a session on, but all 30, and I'm inspired here by Kurt Liesveld's work. Let me just be very clear about that. That's what my love for Kurt was about, is that he loved this tool, and he didn't want to start a coaching business, as Paul was talking about this morning, because that's not what drove him. It was this love for this, and so it inspired me to kind of come up with some work on that. I'd love to share that with you guys sometime, because I think it just helps explain things. So let's go into the next room, self-knowledge. So I just have these little things. These are Don Clifton's top 5, and just a little storyboard of how StrengthsFinder came to be. And this is my favorite tool for self-knowledge, and I think for a lot of you as well. Here's a quote from him. Over time, we become more aware of who we are, who we really are, and this is vital to strength building because it allows us to identify more clearly our natural talents and cultivate those talents into strengths. And so if you look at the handout about room 1, it gives some more thoughts there and some discussion questions, some thought-provoking questions. And I plan on evolving this much further than where it is now, so check back with me later. But I'm really excited about this voyage, helping people through their authentic journey. All right, self-acceptance asks questions like, what are my assets? What are my liabilities? And you know what? A lot of times it's hard to accept our negative qualities, but for some of us, and I'm one of those people, I can accept my negative qualities pretty easily. It's my positive qualities that I haven't really embraced. And that costs. It costs me a lot. What is relevant that I'm denying? I put the word pellets there to remind me of this one time a few years back one winter I opened the counter and I saw these little brown pellets there. And then I just shut the door. I didn't want to deal with it, mice, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know how to deal with this problem, and and it became a metaphor for me of a lot of self-denial that people have. The StrengthsFinder connection is, it's easier to accept what I'm weak at when I'm acknowledged for what I'm strong at. And it also mathematically proves the point. You can only have 5 themes in your top 5. You can't have all 34 in your top 5. That's the math genius that I represent. It's objective. You might have had people along the way tell you, oh, you're really good at this. You're like, well, you're my mom. You have to say that. You know what I mean? But here it's a little more objective, and it points toward a developmental path, which leads to the next room. And there's a great quote that I'm not going to read because we're going to go. I want to get to the last piece. And so self-development. These are the questions. You can read faster than I can talk. The StrengthsFinder connection here. I'm going to talk about this tomorrow. This idea of how to move beyond just talking about the themes and actually applying them to strengths. And I'm really excited about that. And whatever. Let's go into self-development a little bit more. This is what it's like when you take your StrengthsFinder. Before you take your StrengthsFinder, you don't even have this picture. But here it is. Your 5 themes are the horses, and there's your client, and you're the coach. That wasn't planned. I just thought of that before. I'm like, oh yeah, you could be the little chariot there. And then there's what it's like when you have strengths. You know, you're more in control of these wild and crazy and powerful things that are constantly swirling, these patterns that are going on within you, that how people got through life without even having the language for it. Thank you, Don Clifton. This is why I love it. This is why the people you work with love it. We have work to do as a profession in terms of how we go about it. We're at 15 million. We want $1 billion. That's 985 million to go. And so we're not done yet. We have more to do. We have not yet arrived. That's what I think this conference it represents for me, is this opportunity to share with other people who are passionate and to grow it. Okay, I'm almost done. This is a great model. This comes from the book Primal Leadership by Richard Boyatzis, is the co-author there with Emotional Intelligence, Daniel Goleman. And these questions are on your sheet, so they're on there. But I love this as a template for a developmental path. Very consistent with everything I've talked about today. Now, I'm going to go to, I do like this idea of micro struggles as part of that developmental journey. I want to get in shape, maybe. I haven't committed yet. But if I go out and run a marathon, I'll die. But maybe I can run to the next driveway. The houses are really close to my neighborhood. And then maybe the next day I can run 2 driveways. I don't have to run a marathon. I don't have to get in perfect shape overnight. I set up micro struggles. You can set up micro struggles for your clients. That's how we got our themes in the first place, overcoming a series of micro struggles. Self-assertion. Okay, I'm skipping past. Okay, read those real quick because I want to get to these handouts. It's, for me, so important. Stuff. All right, it's good. This is from a book called Your Perfect Right, written in the 70s. It's like in its 9th or 10th printing, and it's this idea of that sweet spot of being assertive as opposed to being passive or aggressive or passive-aggressive. Like you were mad that you were passive and the other person didn't yield to, they didn't read your thoughts, and so now you're mad at them. Okay, so this chart here really kind of lays out the difference between them. People that are passive are self-deprecating, or in Oklahoma they say self-defecating. I have no idea. Like, I think you're saying the wrong word. Versus self-enhancing, that puffery. Hey, look at me, our egos want to be acknowledged for it. Domineering versus being inhibited. Instead, you're expressive. You say what you want. Instead of being hurt and anxious or controlling, you just feel good about yourself. Instead of allowing others to choose or choosing for others, you choose for yourself. Okay, so what I want to say about this is that that assertiveness is when I understand what's rightfully mine to pursue, and I do so conscious of not preventing other people from pursuing what's rightfully theirs to pursue, and not allowing people to prevent me from pursuing what's rightfully mine to pursue. And I think we would be a much healthier world if we practiced assertiveness. We're not healthier if we're passive, like here in the Midwest, where it's like, I don't want to come off too strong or be too direct. And I get that. Manners and being polite is important. But to say what you want, to ask for what you want without preventing somebody else from being able to do the same, I just think things would be so much better. And so this is why it caps off that journey of the 4 rooms. I used to only stop at self-development, and then I was like, no, we really need to go to that next place to have our clients be assertive. Yeah, let's do that. I'm doing my dismount now.
I missed the title of the book.
What's that?
The title.
Oh, the title of the book is called Your Perfect Right. Yeah. And the definition here, assertiveness is behavior which enables a person to act in his or her own best interest, to stand up for oneself without undue anxiety, because I get anxiety when I want to stand up for myself. If any of you saw a Facebook post I wrote recently, I was really anxious about this one. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, then forget you heard that. To express honest feelings comfortably, or to exercise one's rights without denying it. And you know, think of someone you know who models assertiveness, healthy assertiveness. It's really inspirational, and we can learn from that. Because then we can find our gift. And then I was looking for this quote today, and I'm like, oh, here it is. It's on my PowerPoint. The meaning of life is to find your gift. That's pretty cool. The purpose, the purpose, it's a very urbane way of saying that. I don't know what urbane means, but the purpose of life is to give it away. So cool. So cool. All right, now we're doing the dismount session feedback. If you're interested in learning more about any of this, there we go. I'm actually going to be doing a telecourse for 12 weeks on this stuff. Thank you. Questions? Any questions? Do we have any time for questions? 1 minute for questions, yes. Lisa.
Question on your StrengthsFinder thing.
Yes, on the StrengthsFinder thing.
Content. Tell us about the definition, what you meant.
Oh, to
about
be content. Content.
Okay.
Content.
Not
yeah.
content.
Yeah.
That explains a lot.
This is why I'm here. This is why I get the big bucks. But I'm content. There's a definition of it I really like. A state of wanting that which you already have. Isn't that kind of cool? All right, anything else? Thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. I'm really enjoying meeting all of you. This has been so much fun. Have a good night.
Feedback in the app, 3